Before he was Alexander the Great, the conqueror of Persia, pharaoh of Egypt, and the king of an empire that stretched from Greece to India, he was just a teenager navigating a dangerous royal court. His father was a brilliant warlord who united Greece. His mother was a fiercely ambitious outsider, and between them, a bitter family conflict that nearly tore the Macedonian kingdom apart before Alexander ever set foot on a battlefield. So, did Alexander the Great's father really try to kill him? Let's dig in. In ancient Macedonia, or Macedon, Philip II was no ordinary king. He took a fractured backwater kingdom and, through diplomacy, battlefield innovation, and sheer will, turned it into a military powerhouse. As he expanded his territory, Philip sealed alliances with marriage, taking multiple wives, often from the regions he conquered. He added wives like battlefield trophies, one war, one wedding. One of those wives was Olympias, the princess from Epirus, just west of Macedonia. She gave birth to a son, Alexander. Olympias was no passive queen. She was deeply religious, politically savvy, and, according to later sources, completely devoted to securing her son's future on the throne. Philip's court was more political chessboard than family tree, and Alexander grew up in the middle of it. He and his mother were often treated like outsiders, especially as Philip's ambitions and his wife collection grew. Trouble began when Philip took yet another wife, this time to a much younger woman named Cleopatra. No, not the one from Egypt. She comes 300 years later. This Cleopatra was Macedonian by birth, and that made her especially dangerous in the eyes of Olympias and Alexander. If she had a son, that child could claim a purer right to the throne, since he would be a purebred Macedonian, unlike Alexander. At the wedding feast, tensions exploded. According to the historian Plutarch, one of Cleopatra's relatives, possibly her uncle Attalus, made a toast, praying for a legitimate heir to the Macedonian throne. Alexander was furious at the insult, since he considered himself to be plenty legitimate enough. He threw his cup, exchanged words, and may have even drawn his sword. Philip, already drunk, rose to confront Alexander, and collapsed in his drunken stupor before reaching his son. Alexander's comment in that moment, also recorded by Plutarch, is legendary. Here is the man who would cross from Europe into Asia, and he cannot even cross from one table to another. Burn. It was an awkward toast, an angry prince, and a royal faceplant. One of the most uncomfortable family dinners in ancient history. It was also a moment that revealed the growing divide between father and son. The relationship never fully recovered. Shortly after the wedding incident, Alexander and Olympias both left the royal court. He to Illyria, and she back to Epirus. Then, just a year later, Philip was assassinated. Interesting. It happened in 336 BC at the wedding of his daughter in broad daylight as he entered the theater. He was killed by one of his own bodyguards, a man named Pausanias. Ancient sources disagree on the motive. Some say it was personal revenge. Pausanias felt betrayed by Philip. Others suggest a conspiracy involving Olympias or even Alexander himself. The historian Justin, writing centuries later, hints that Olympias celebrated the assassination, placing a golden crown on the killer's head and honoring him with a hero's burial. Whether that's accurate or not, it's clear that the murder created an immediate power vacuum, and Olympias moved quickly to fill it. Let's just say she didn't send flowers to Cleopatra and the baby after the death of Philip. Cleopatra and her infant son were executed. Alexander returned, claimed the throne, and ordered the elimination of all rivals. At just 20 years old, he became king of Macedonia. With his father's generals, army, and a vision already in place to invade the Persian Empire, Alexander took up the mantle. What followed is legendary. In a little over a decade, he defeated Darius III, declared himself pharaoh of Egypt, founded over 20 cities, many named after himself, and pushed eastward to the edge of the known world. He may have inherited the crown, but the empire, that he carved out with grit, strategy, and a touch of divine confidence. But the seeds of that conquest were planted much earlier, in the shadow of a tense royal marriage, a contested succession, and one very public fall from grace. So, did Alexander the Great's father really try to kill him? Actually, it may have been Alexander who was involved in killing Philip. We'll never know for sure, but what we do know is that from the moment Philip fell, Alexander rose, shaped by ambition, family politics, and a kingdom still reeling from a king's assassination. Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Have to Know History for more intrigue, rivalry, and the stories you just have to know.